Okay, welcome back to our geometry review. We have a little bit of part of question 8 to finish here. It also asks us to find the area of the triangle. So we know that we found it to be 168 feet. So when we go to find the area of a triangle, it's 1/2 base times height. And in this case, we have a base of 168. And our height, I think, was 70. So multiplying those together, we should end up with 5,880 square feet. And if we wanted to convert that to square yards, we've got 5,880 feet squared. So we would have to do 1 yard to 3 feet, and then do that again in order to convert both feet squared here using those two. So we're really dividing by 9 instead of 3. So 5,880 divided by 9 ends up being 653 1/3 square yards for the area. All right, looking at our next question here, it says find the perimeter and area of the given shape. Now, we can divide this into different rectangles. We could either divide it here, or we can choose to divide it vertically. All right, so I'm going to divide it there because I know that this whole side here is 19, and only this much of it is 12. So that means the remaining part here would be 7. And we're told that this whole side is 12. This much of it is 8. So this other piece here would have to be 4. So to find the perimeter, we're just adding all the sides. So let's say we start here. We need 12 plus 4 plus 7 plus another 12 plus 19 plus 8. Adding those all up, we end up with 62 meters for a perimeter. And then to find the area, we're going to just look at length times width for the two rectangles. So this rectangle would be 8 by 12. And then this rectangle would be 7 by 12. And if we multiply those pieces and add it up, we end up with 180, and the area here would be meters squared. All right, for question 10, notice that we have this little squiggly symbol in between. That means that they are similar figures. And similar figures have same angles and sides that are proportional. So looking at the orientation here, we have ABC is similar to DEF. That means angle A and angle D have to be equivalent. And angle B and angle E have to be equivalent. So if angle B is 118, that means this angle is also 118. Let me shrink this down a little bit here so my pen isn't so big. All right, and then looking at this other angles, we've used up 118. If we subtract that from 180, we're left with 62 degrees. And because we're told that these are isosceles, we know that the two legs are the same, which means these base angles also have to be the same. So we're going to take this 62, split it equally into two parts, and that means that angle A and angle C are 31 degrees. And since the triangles are similar, that means that angle D and angle F are also 31 degrees. Okay, now for side lengths. Since this side is 7, we know that this side has to be 7. Okay, so segment AB has length of 7. In the other triangle, these two sides are going to be equivalent to each other, but they're proportional to triangle ABC. So if we look at the ratio of 7 to 12, we can say the side 7 to the side 12 has to be proportional to this unknown compared to its longest side of 18. And when we cross multiply, we're going to get 12x equals 7 times 18. Dividing by 12, we end up with 10.5. So my missing sides here would be 10 and a half. Okay? So segment BC and, segment EF and DE are both 10.5. All right. For question 11, it says find all of the angles in an isosceles triangle if each base angle is 4 times the size of the apex angle. Okay, so let's sketch an isosceles triangle. We're going to have those two sides be equivalent, which means that these two base angles are the same. And it says that those base angles are 4 times the apex angle. So let's call this x degrees. That means each of these would be 4x degrees. And all of the angles in a triangle have to add up to 180. So if we take x plus 4x plus 4x, we should get 180 degrees. Combining all those like terms, we have 9x being 180, which means x would be 20 degrees. So my apex angle is 20 degrees, and my base angles are 4 times that, so they're both 80 degrees. All right, looking at question 12. We have several, let me pause this for a second and shrink some of this writing here, just one sec. Okay, so it says right triangle ABC has an angle bisector BD where angle BDC is 120 degrees and side AB is 10. All right. Find all missing angles and sides. So let's start with figuring out, we have a straight line here, and if we know that one angle is 120, then its supplementary angle would be 60. So let's look at triangle ADB. We know that this is 60 degrees. We know this is a right angle, so this angle has to be 30 degrees. Okay? And we also know that side BD is an angle bisector. That means these two little angles up at the top are going to be equivalent. So if the first one here is 30, then we know that the other angle here has to be 30 as well. Okay? So if we look at triangle ACB, that we have two 30-degree angles up here, which makes this 60 degrees. And so this angle C is going to have to be 30 degrees. Okay? So we've figured out our missing angles. Now we have to start working on some side lengths. We were told that this side was 10. And if we look at, I'll put it in both pictures here. Let's start with triangle ABC. We have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. The side opposite the 30-degree angle is my smallest side, and the hypotenuse is always twice as big. So that means this side would have to be 20. And the longer leg has to be the short side times the square root of 3. So this side is going to be 10 root 3. Okay? Looking at the smaller triangle, ABD, we also have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, but this time we're given the longer leg being 10. So this short leg has to be related to this, okay? If we call this x, this is x root 3. So we can say that x root 3 is a 10, dividing out the root 3, and then rationalizing that, we end up with side AD here, which we've labeled x, being 10 root 3 divided by 3. Okay? And then the hypotenuse of that is twice that short leg, so side BD is just twice that, or 20 root 3 divided by 3. Okay? I think we found all of the sides. I guess we did not find DC yet. All right, so let's work on finding DC. Side length DC, this portion, is the whole thing, AC, minus AD. So if we know that AC, we just found that to be 10 root 3 here. And we're subtracting AD, which we found to be 10 root 3 divided by 3. We can get common denominators here. Think of this as 30 thirds times root 3 instead of a 10, 30 thirds, minus 10 thirds of a root 3 would give us 20 root 3 over 3 for side DC. All right, now I think we found all of the sides and angles. All right, question 13. It says, find the length of minor arc AB given angle AOB is 40 degrees and the radius of the circle is 5 with center O. So let's draw a circle. Okay, center O. Radius is 5. And it says that we have this minor arc AB that's 40 degrees. So if this is 40-degree arc, it means that angle is also 40 degrees. They want us to find the arc length. Instead of the measurement in degrees, they want the arc length. And the arc length is this portion of the whole circle, of the whole circumference. So we want one little portion or one part of our whole circumference. Okay? Well, circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. And we were told the radius is 5. So my circumference would be 10 pi. And now we have to look at what portion of the circle we have. Our circle all the way around is 360 degrees, but we're only working with 40 degrees of that. So for arc AB, its length is going to be 40 out of 360, that portion of the circumference. Okay, so we have 40 divided by 360, which is 1/9, times 10 pi. So arc length AB is going to be 10/9 times pi. All right, question 14. It says, find the circumference of the circle given that BC is 12 feet. And we're also told that this angle A over here is 45 degrees. And if you remember from geometry, if we go from the center to the ends of that arc, it's twice the angle measurement of this. So that tells me that this angle is a 90-degree angle right there. We're also told that this side is 12. So if we look at, we need to find the radius to figure out our circumference, right? So let's look at this triangle here. Okay, I'm going to redraw it outside here so we have a little more space. We know that this is 12, and these are each radii of the circle. Okay, and it is a right triangle. So we could go through with the Pythagorean Theorem, or we could look at it and say, since it's an isosceles triangle with the two radii making the legs, we know that it has to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And this 12 is going to be our side length times the square root of 2. So if we have r root 2 equaling 12, we can divide by root 2, and we can rationalize that. So we get 12 root 2 divided by 2, or 6 root 2. Okay, so my radius is 6 root 2, and they want us to find the circumference. Circumference is 2 pi r, and so we need 2 times pi times 6 root 2, which ends up being 12 pi root 2. All right. Question 15. It says, find the surface area of a sphere whose volume is 121.5 pi. And they give us two formulas. It's kind of tiny here. Volume is 4/3 pi r cubed, and surface area is 4 pi r squared. All right, so we're told the volume, so 4/3 pi r cubed, is supposed to be 121.5. So let's use that to figure out our radius, and then we can use that in our surface area formula. So we're going to multiply by 3/4, and we're going to divide out the pi. So r cubed is 121.5 times 3 divided by a 4 and a pi. And then to figure out, which is approximately 91.125, and so to find r, we're going to cube root that. So we end up with a radius of about 4.5. Okay? Then we can find the surface area taking 4 times pi times our radius squared. So 4 times pi times 4.5 squared. Again, they want our answer left in terms of pi. So on our calculator, we're just going to do 4.5 squared times the 4, and we get 81 times our pi for surface area. All right. Our next question, we're going to use a graph to help us figure this out. It says to find the probability that a point within the region y is less than negative absolute value of x plus 4 plus 1, and y is greater than or equal to negative 3, is also in the region where x is greater than negative 2. So let's start with this first one. Y is less than negative the absolute value of x plus 4 plus 1. It's an absolute value graph, which means it's a V shape. Because of this negative, it's an upside down V shape. And the number in front is just a negative 1. So on the right here, we have a slope of negative 1. We've moved from the origin left 4 and up 1. All right, so let's draw. This is an absolute value curve. Flipped upside down would look like this. But we're shifting it left 4 and up 1. So our vertex is there. And now we're going to move in a negative 1 slope on the right. Let me start over here and actually plot my points a little better. Okay, so there's my negative absolute value graph, and it says we want to be less than that. So we want to be underneath. We're shading under here. And we also want to be where y is greater than or equal to negative 3. So y being negative 3 would be right here, and we want to be above that. So our region that we're working with is this part in here. Okay? And then it says now compare that. What is the probability that a point in that region is also in the region where x is greater than negative 2, which would be here, going this direction. So they're really saying, what is the probability I'm in this part, this little triangle here, compared to being in the whole big yellow triangle? So we need the area of the little black triangle compared to the area of the yellow triangle. Okay, So let's look at our formula for area, 1/2 base times height. For the black one, my base is 2 and my height is 2. So half of 4 would be 2. And then for the yellow triangle, 1/2 base times height. Here my base went from this point to this point, which is a distance of 8. And my height was from here up to here, which is a height of 4. So base was 8 and height was 4. So half of 32 would be 16. Reduced, we end up with 1/8. So we have a 1 out of 8 chance that a point in the yellow region is also in the black region. All right, question 17. It says the points 4n and 8m are on a line that is perpendicular to 4x minus 5y equals 20. Find the positive difference between m and n. So let's start out looking at this line they're giving us. 4x minus 5y equals 20. Let's go ahead and figure out our slope because we want to be perpendicular to that. So to find slope, we need to solve for y. I'm going to subtract the 4x to the other side and then divide out the negative 5. So we end up with y equals 4/5 x minus 4. So my original line has a slope of 4/5. That means my perpendicular slope is going to be negative 5/4. All right, so let's compare our points here. We have the point 4n and the point 8m. And we know that they're on a line that has a slope of negative 5/4. So if we do our slope formula, change in y over change in x, so m minus n compared to 8 minus 4, that slope should be negative 5/4. Well, the denominator here, 8 minus 4, is 4. So that tells me that m minus n is negative 5. Now they wanted the positive difference, so we're just taking the absolute value of that, or switching these around. So n minus m would be a positive 5. So the positive difference is just 5 spaces. All right, our last question. It says an octagon has 2 right angles and 6 other congruent angles. What is the measure of each of the larger angles? So we have a formula from geometry that says the total, the sum of the angles in a polygon is n minus 2 times 180. So if we have a polygon with n sides, we can basically make n minus 2 fewer than that number of triangles, and each triangle is 180 degrees. So we're told that we have an octagon. So our side length is 8. So our total angles, total of all of our angles, we'd have 8 minus 2, or 6, times 180, which ends up being 1080. So we have 1080 degrees to work with. And they told us we have 2 right angles. So let's take off 2 right angles would be 180 degrees. That leaves me with 900 degrees. And it says that the other 6 angles are all congruent, so they're equal. So we just have to take that 900, split it equally into 6 pieces. That means each of those smaller angles, or each of those non-right angles, are 150 degrees. All right, that is a summary of our geometry review. Let me know if you have any questions.